Hello! Today I will be going over what if the DISVENTURE Camp Season 4 contestants were in Season 2. Now, you might be thinking, Dean, Season 4 has 18 contestants and Season 2 only has 14. Well, to that I say, I know. I've decided to leave 4 players from Season 4 on their original season, which I think is fine due to the rest of the cast being very different. I spun a wheel to decide 2 of those characters and then handpicked the last 2 to stay behind. And before we begin, I just want to preface, since this season is so much shorter, the characters aren't going to be as well developed like in the original. The opposite problem presents itself in the next season, but we'll get to that. Anyways, on with the what if. Episode 1. Here we go again. The episode starts with Crystal explaining the rules of the game before the intro. On the bus, we're introduced to our cast. Anastasia, Benji, Hannah, Isabel, Ivy, Jade, Logan, Linda, Marissa, Richard, Spencer, Ted, Tristan, and Zaid. Don't worry, Alessio, Amelie, Diego, and Natalia's time will come next season. Hannah is staring out the window with Benji next to her. She turns her head and sees Benji staring. She asks what he wants, and he says he was just trying to see what she was looking at. Hannah doesn't believe it, and Benji tries to fix the situation by making a terrible joke. Hannah laughs in his face and says he sucks at social interaction. Marissa compliments Anastasia, which she scoffs at, but accepts. Linda complains about the air conditioning, which Richard laughs off, saying he's been in buses way worse and crammed when taking his players into their competitions. The bus stops, and Nina explains the foot race. Everyone is shocked at the elimination and starts running. Isabel runs up to Ted and introduces herself. Ted introduces himself back and asks what a nun is doing here. Isabel responds by saying she's here to spread God's word. Ted looks confused. In confessional, he admits he doesn't understand why a reality TV show is the best place to do that. Tristan, Ivy, and Zaid are running next to one another. Ivy is boasting about being on the show and asks the other 2 if they agree. They do. Ivy starts going on and on about finally being able to experience what it's like to be a real person. Tristan asks what she means, and Ivy takes the given opportunity to talk about her acting past. Zaid says that's awesome. Ivy smiles. They then reach the finish line one by one. First to arrive is Marissa on the orange team, Zaid for the green team, Logan for the orange team, Hannah for the green team, Anastasia for the orange team, Spencer for the green team, Tristan for the orange team, Isabel for the green team, Ivy for the orange team, Jade for the green team, Richard for the orange team, Benji for the green team, and Ted for the orange team, leaving Linda for the green team. They're shocked to learn no one is getting eliminated just yet. Linda complains about all the things so far, and Crystal threatens a disadvantage. Linda crosses her arms and scoffs. On the green team, Hannah asks the rest what they do with their money, and Zaid explains his situation with his family, which warms Hannah's heart. Linda says family is the most important thing to her too, and explains what she's doing this for. Hannah supports her, which Linda appreciates. Inside, Spencer approaches Jade, who's unpacking, and offers an alliance. Jade thinks a bit, and in a confessional admits that an early game alliance can be very powerful, but she needs to stay wary. She accepts, however. On the orange team, we see Marissa and Anastasia talk at the bench outside. Anastasia is checking her makeup in a little mirror, and puts it away and turns to Marissa, who is just watching. She asks what she needs, and Marissa says she doesn't need anything, just watching her fix her beauty. Anastasia says her beauty never needs fixing, and Marissa apologizes and backs off. Anastasia says not to worry, she's beauty, bronze, and brain. Marissa says they have a powerhouse on their team then. The next day arrives, and they meet for the challenge. Crystal explains. 3 members will ride a boat, then 2 members will ride a quad, 1 member rides a bike, and the last one runs to the finish line. The first to cross wins immunity. On the boats, we have Jade, Isabel, Spencer for the green team, and then Ted, Richard, and Logan for the orange team. On the quads are Hannah and Benji for the green team, and Marissa and Anastasia for the orange team. The bikers are Linda and Ivy, and then last we have the runners, which are Zaid and Tristan. On the green team's boat, Jade is driving. Isabel mentions Jade seems like she knows what she's doing, and Jade says she's a marine biologist, so she's been on a few boats in her lifetime. Spencer says that's a pretty rough profession, and Jade says it has its flaws, but does it everything? Isabel then makes a strange transition into asking them into an alliance. The other two look at each other, but then agree. Isabel looks at the two, suspicious. In confessional, Isabel asks if they already had one. Why did they have to look at each other first? On the other team's boat, Richard is yapping Ted and Logan's ears off, which Logan loves and Ted seems to hate. Ted then cuts Richard off and says they have to talk strategy, and asks Logan formally if he'd like to join their alliance. Logan is surprised, and Richard laughs and says he's a swimmer and he'd be a great ally to have. Ted is surprised, but likes hearing that, and pushes him to join just a little more. Logan agrees, but then asks the two not to tell anyone he's a swimmer. He's worried that it'll put a target on their back. They agree. The teams hand off their flag to the others. Hannah tells Benji to hold on, Spider Monkey, as they speed forward as Benji yells. Anastasia hands Ivy the flag, and Ivy says, "Thank you, I'm going there." But this time, musical. We see Ivy pass Linda in biking, as Linda is going the pace of her usual biking outings, which is not very quick. Ivy passes the flag to Tristan, who starts running, but Linda isn't far behind in passing hers to Zaid. The two are running like their lives depended on it. It's a close race, but Zaid couldn't make up the time, Linda lost, and Tristan wins it for their team. This means the green team goes to elimination. Before the elimination, Isabel, Spencer, and Jade discuss who they're targeting. Jade says they should vote Linda as she lost them the challenge, but Isabel suggests they should go for Benji to remove him from Hannah. Spencer asks if he's a weaker link than Linda. They think about this. Later, the elimination ceremony arrives, and in a 5-2 vote, Linda is eliminated. Linda stands up and yells at the team. She tells Sage she's rooting for him and him only. She storms towards the bus stop and gets picked up. The episode starts with Sage sitting in the dining hall stirring his bowl of breakfast. Sadly, Hannah spots him and goes over to sit with him. She asks if he is alright, and Sage scoffs at her, asking her if she felt alright voting off someone who she bonded with on day one. Hannah looks annoyed and says they only talked once, plus Linda lost them the challenge. Sage rolls his eyes and says this was a great conversation, and takes his breakfast elsewhere. Hannah scoffs. At the other side, we see Ivy coming to sit next to Tristan. They talk about their lives, where Tristan reveals their identity, which intrigues Ivy, and she supports them. Tristan is happy about this and thanks her. The same Crystal/Oliver things happen, where Crystal asks Oliver to help her if she oversteps. After this, she explains the challenge of starting a fire and keeping it going for as long as possible, even when it gets to nighttime. If you fall asleep, you're out. Both teams start making their fire, where Logan, with sticks in his hands, runs up to their area and sees Anastasia and Marissa already having prepared sticks. He says he had hoped to show his fire-making skills. Anastasia turns and says she's surprised he had those. Marissa says she'd love to see it, and Logan tells Anastasia to move over. She says no, and tells him this is now a competition. Logan takes the challenge and throws his sticks down. Marissa counts them down. Anastasia beats Logan, but Logan isn't upset and praises Anastasia. She explains why Logan lost, and Marissa says she now sees why Anastasia is brains, brawn, and beauty, which earns a blush from Anastasia. On the green team, they've just started their fire. Jade tells Isabel and Spencer to come with her to gather firewood. Benji notices, but turns back to Hannah and Zaid. It doesn't take long before Hannah and Zaid start bickering again. Benji takes the opportunity to slip away. In the woods, Jade, Spencer, and Isabel talk about the next vote. Isabel wants to speak, but gets cut off by Spencer, insisting on picking off the weakest links. After that, they have the numbers. Isabel looks annoyed, as Jade agrees with Spencer. Isabel in confessional says the overconfidence of Spencer is dripping off of him, while gesturing being disgusted. Back at the fire, Hannah and Zaid are now back-to-back, sulking like kids. Zaid spots Ivy and Tristan hanging out by the fire together. He looks over at Hannah, who's staring at the fire. He gets up and walks over to the two. They're surprised to see him, as he's on the other team, and he admits he's not too happy with being with them right now. They hang out a while, and Ivy and Zayd start being a little flirty, with Tristan giggling at this. Hannah is seen eyeing them. The guys' alliance from the Orange team are hanging out in the woods, where Richard is telling tales of his basketball coaching days, with Logan listening excitedly. Ted then says that he needs a pee break, and asks if that bush is safe to touch. Richard says it will be fine. It wasn't, and Ted jumps away with his cheeks out while the other two guys laugh at him. Cut to the next day, where we see Isabel, Spencer, Ted, and Richard asleep. Jade, Zayd, Anastasia, Ivy, and Logan look tired. The awake people of the Orange team are sat at the campfire. Marissa stands up and says the fire is dimming, and she'd like the people with the most energy to come along to help. Logan stands up, saying he's ready, and then yawns. Tristan says they're awake, but not sure if they're too much help. Marissa says company's help enough, which Tristan agrees to. Marissa turns around to recruit Logan, but he's already fallen asleep. Marissa and Tristan head out, leaving Anastasia and Ivy. Ivy tries to start small talk, asking Anastasia where she's from, which earns her a scoff and an answer with Russia. Ivy acts excited, saying she's always been curious about Russia, and Anastasia cuts her off, saying she's not in the mood for witty chit-chat. Ivy apologizes awkwardly and looks away. Later that night, Jade, Zayd, Anastasia, and Ivy have fallen asleep. Benji and Tristan hold on by a thread, as Hannah and Marissa seem pretty awake still. Benji asks Hannah how she does it, and Hannah tells him about her job as a bartender. She makes long nights, so she's gotten used to staying awake for a while. Benji says that's a way cooler reason than his, which is gaming until it's late. Hannah chuckles. On the other side, Tristan finally gives in and falls asleep right after they salute Marissa. Benji follows suit, leaving Hannah and Marissa. Hannah notices her fire is almost out, to which she runs into the woods to get some more firewood. This alarms Marissa as well, who follows. But there is no more wooden planks in the forest, as Crystal has taken them all. Marissa runs back to her fire and starts blowing on it. Hanny copies and does the same. It's a close tense few seconds, but Marissa's survival skills help the fire stay on a little longer, giving them the win. Hannah is disappointed she wasn't able to help her team. Marissa tells her she did great, which earns a weak smile from Hannah. The next morning, Hannah is sat on her bed, still sulking. Benji walks up to her and says not to beat herself up about it. In fact, he has some information. He tells Hannah that Jade, Isabel, and Spencer have an alliance. Hannah asks how he knows, and he tells her he spied on them in the forest. Hannah smiles, thinking they have a way out of this. Jade, Spencer, and Isabel are sat in the dining hall, and Hannah and Benji walk up to them. Hannah says they have a proposition to make, as they know they are in an alliance. This surprises the alliance. Hannah tells them Zayd has connections to the other team, as she saw him talking to Ivy and Tristan last night. He'll be a liability if he goes any further. Spencer asks why they should believe her. Hannah shrugs, saying that's their call. The three look at each other. Voting time arrives, and in a 5-1 vote, Zayd is eliminated. He clenches his fists and closes his eyes and sighs. He then turns to Hannah, and with a harsh tone, tells her, "Well played," and walks off. Jade in confessional says they voted Zayd as they wanted to avoid a tiebreaker. They now have the numbers to vote out either Hannah or Benji if they lose. Episode 3, Wheel of Misfortune. The guys' alliance are sitting in the dining hall. Ted is scheming, saying they should eliminate Anastasia next, as she's close with Marissa, and so on and so on. Logan and Richard are barely listening as they're eating, though Logan does perk up when Ted mentions eliminating Anastasia, and asks if they could eliminate Marissa instead. At this point, the couple walks in. Anastasia asks if they could do what? Logan turns red and looks around in a panic. Richard says they're just talking about guy things like sports. Nothing to worry about. Anastasia looks suspicious. In confessionals, she says she heard them wanting to eliminate Marissa instead of her. Not on her watch. Spencer joins Jade at the dock and asks her what she's doing. Jade mentions her morning ritual of meditating by the water. Spencer asks if it works, and she says it does, and asks if he needed something. Spencer says no. Jade then invites him to join her in meditation, or to just sit there in silence. Spencer says he wouldn't mind the noise of the waves. At the amphitheater, Crystal introduces the next challenge, the Wheel of Dares. The hosts will spin 3 wheels, 2 of them containing campers, and the third involving dares such as a compliment, insult, or a kiss. Both teams will go each round until someone refuses a dare. She also hints at a double elimination, which only really gets picked up by the 3 strategists of the green team. Crystal mentions she doesn't want to cross the boundary of someone's beliefs, so Isabel is exempt from kissing. Isabel thanks God. Crystal spins the wheel and it lands on Benji and Logan, and kiss. Benji and Logan both look flustered. Anastasia says for Logan to go do it. Don't be scared of another boy. Hannah pats Benji on the back. They kiss and move on. Logan seems a little more flustered than Benji. Next, Spencer and Anastasia. Insult. Anastasia looks ready and Insult says looks. Spencer scoffs and makes a comment about her preppy appearance right back, which makes Anastasia furious. The next round, Benji and Tristan get picked for kiss. Benji complains, saying he already went. Crystal shrugs. They walk up to each other and Benji starts talking, but Tristan cuts him off with a kiss. Benji is stunned while Tristan giggles at him and asks what. It was his challenge, right? Benji stutters over his words. The wheel then lands on Logan and Ted. Insult. Logan isn't sure what to say to him, and Ted mentions he's too insecure and no one would care what he really is. Logan looks flustered and asks him what he means, thinking he's talking about his sexuality. Ted then says Olympic swimmer. Duh. Logan settles down a bit until he realizes Ted revealed his secret. Logan says that secrets were meant to be kept. Ted says he asked for clarification. Logan says he's a shady douchebag and walks off. Next round, Anastasia plus Ivy. Insult. Anastasia wastes no time, calling Ivy fake like everyone from Hollywood. Ivy is annoyed, saying not everyone there is fake, you know. Crystal then says she needs to insult her back for it to count. Ivy looks at Anastasia, looks around, not knowing what to say, and says she could be nicer. Crystal says that doesn't count as an insult. Ivy chuckles awkwardly, saying she's not used to being so rude. Anastasia says she's an actress. Act. Ivy takes a deep breath and unleashes an entire monologue onto Anastasia, shocking everyone with the harsh words Ivy just spat at Anastasia. She ends it with a, and scene. She earns a clap from everyone until Crystal says it doesn't count as it wasn't from the heart. Anastasia says that's ridiculous. She never said it had to be. Crystal says she does whatever she wants. She's the host. This means the orange team loses. Back at the cabins, Logan is sitting alone. Ted and Richard approach him, and Ted says they should vote Anastasia tonight if they can convince either Ivy or Tristan. Logan looks annoyed and asks why he should trust him after he revealed his secret so easily. Ted wants to retort, but Richard jumps in, saying they have time to talk this out after the vote. For now, they have to stay civil to make sure they stay in the game. Both Ted and Logan look annoyed. Logan says they'll vote Marissa. Ted says that's fine. In confessional, Ted says Logan is really overreacting. Voting Marissa is less preferable, but he has to keep him in his corner. Ted and Richard leave, and Anastasia walks up to him and sits down. Logan asks if she's here to convince him of something, and she says yes. She proposes voting Ted for revealing his secret. He asks why, and she says to vote with them, and he'll be safe for at least the merge. He says as long as he doesn't have to vote for Richard. Voting time comes around, and in a 5-2 vote, Ted is eliminated. Ted stands up, about to let them have it, but Crystal cuts him off, saying today was a double elimination, which he hinted at before the challenge, and they'll be voting again. Logan looks worried. After that, in a 4-2 vote, Richard is eliminated. Logan stands up and turns to Richard. Ted says to look what he did. Logan apologizes to Richard, saying he didn't know about the double elimination. Richard sighs and forgives him, but says he should be way more careful about who he votes next time, and pats him on the shoulder. An annoyed Ted and calm Richard walk out together. Logan looks annoyed at Anastasia. In confessional, Logan says he said not to vote Richard, so why did Anastasia? Ivy in confessional says it feels good to be the deciding vote. As long as her or Tristan wouldn't go home, she was fine working with Anastasia, even if she was a bit rude. Episode 4. Truth Hurts. This episode begins with Logan sulking at the bench outside. Anastasia walks up to him and asks if he's with them now. Logan looks upset and asks why he should be. They voted out Richard when he says not to. Anastasia fights back, saying he said he wouldn't vote Richard. He never told her not to. Logan gets more upset, saying she could have known not to. Anastasia is just playing the game. Logan gets up and says he's not working with them, and that he is leaving. Anastasia in confessional says she knew she wanted Ted gone, but getting rid of Richard was an added bonus, as Logan is now alone. But he's being a baby. In the dining hall, we see Ivy sulking as Tristan eats next to her. They ask what's up with her, and Ivy sighs, saying she misses Zaid. They barely even got to talk, but he was so charming. Tristan says they understand, but they're still in this together. Ivy then admits she's not sure how long. Tristan looks worried too. Jade is once again meditating at the dock until she hears something hit the side of the dock. She opens an eye and sees the bottle with a team swap advantage. Isabel and Spencer happen to walk up to her at this time. They wanted to talk strategy, but Isabel asks what she's holding. Jade opens the bottles and reads it. The two look intrigued. They discuss what to do. In the host's tent, the same thing happens where Crystal seems to be going way too far, which Oliver brings up but is waved off. The campers walk up to the challenge area, where the Jade, Isabel, and Spencer alliance sees that Ted and Richard are gone, but Logan is standing off to the side. Spencer whispers something into Jade. She grins and nods. Jade stands up and wishes to use her advantage. She says she'd like to swap Benji with Logan. They're both surprised. Hannah crosses her arms. In confessional, Hannah says there goes her only ally. She's totally screwed. After her, Jade explains why she swapped them two. She says it's to make sure they had a powerhouse on their side, while giving Tristan and Ivy the numbers against the two fiercest competitors here, Anastasia and Marissa. If they can just keep winning, both of them should be gone around merge. Logan in confessional is just utterly confused. Crystal then asks who only got to where they are because of their parents. Ivy looks around and sees no one is even thinking about pressing the button. She then guesses it's hers and presses the button. She says that's just how it goes in Hollywood, but she'll turn the image around. The next round. Who has touched turtles as they're on their way to the ocean? Jade sighs and presses the button. Hannah asks how that happened since she loved the ocean, right? Jade nods and says she didn't know yet, obviously looking very upset. Everyone turns awkwardly to Crystal, who struggles to handle their own emotions and has sabotaged past relationship because of it. Everyone is shocked, and Logan says this is way too personal. Crystal threatens a loss, and Spencer presses the button. He says he's not explaining. Crystal looks satisfied, then asks who started social media because they were kicked out of a group. Isabel presses the button, which earns some eyebrow raises. Isabel looks away. Whose parents wishes they'd never had a child? Everyone is shocked as Tristan presses the button and shrugs with a smile. Benji gets up and yells at Crystal for this. This is going too far. Hannah, Ivy, and Marissa join him, refusing to participate. Crystal scoffs and says she's got blackmail enough on them. Marissa is dropping out of military while having trained her whole life for it. Hannah is an orphan. Ivy sabotaged a girl's food to get the main part in a play. Logan is struggling to accept his sexuality. Logan is shocked and turns bright red. Crystal turns and asks if anyone else wants a turn, and everyone stays silent. Crystal starts again. Who is mad at their mother for leaving them behind? Hannah presses the button while looking sad. She then goes over to the orange team and asks whose girlfriend left them and hasn't been seen since. Anastasia refuses to press, and the orange team loses. The food section of the challenge doesn't really make sense to me, so I'll just skip that part. Back in the cabins, Tristan approaches Benji. He's surprised to see them there and asks if they need anything. Tristan says nope. They just want to thank Benji for sticking up for them. It wasn't a huge issue, but they're still thankful. Benji stumbles over his words, saying it's no issue, it was just disrespectful. Tristan asks him about his cosplays, which Benji loves, and they start talking. On the green team, Spencer approaches Logan. They talk a little, which has a little bit of flirty tone, and eventually Spencer offers a guys alliance. Logan hesitates, saying the last guys alliance he was a part of fell apart while looking guilty. Spencer assures him he wouldn't let that happen again. Logan then accepts. In confessional, Spencer says he has to keep his options open. Sure, Isabel and Jade can get him far, but how far? Marissa and Anastasia sit together. Anastasia asks Marissa if she's tried talking to Benji yet. Marissa says she did, but Benji seems to be very friendly with Tristan and Ivy. She doesn't see this going well for them. Marissa tells her she's going to be okay. She's a hurricane, and she's not going to let her pewter out anytime soon, okay? Anastasia looks worried, but nods anyways. In the voting ceremony, in a 3-2 vote, Anastasia is eliminated. Anastasia sighs, but then, pardon me, says Marissa as she gets up. She says, I'd like to formally quit the competition. Anastasia is shocked and tells her not to do it. Marissa says she's made up her mind. She may not be sure about the military, but there's one thing she is sure of, that she loves Anastasia. She cups Anastasia's face and tells her to win this for them. She'd rather leave here than to play the game without her. Anastasia calls her hopeless as she tears up. They share a kiss. She gives her her hat before Marissa walks off. Anastasia in confessional vows to take down the nerdy prude alliance for almost taking her out and making Marissa quit for her. Benji in confessional says that was more dramatic than he thought it'd be. He says he does feel very relieved to have survived the elimination after the tween sup though. Episode 5. Queen Says. Starting the episode, Benji excitedly walks into the dining hall with a picture of a cosplay he did, only to see Ivy sitting alone. He's confused and asks where Tristan is. Ivy says they weren't feeling very well and wanted a slow morning. Benji understands. Ivy asks what he's got there, and Benji turns red in shame, but shows the picture anyways. Ivy calls his outfit cute. For which play is this? Benji chuckles and says it's cosplay. It's just dressing up as a character. Ivy loves the idea, making Benji nerd out, with Ivy just listening to it all. Jade is sat a little farther away from them when Logan walks up to her. They greet each other, and Jade asks if he needed something. Logan asks why she swapped him with Benji. He's just curious. Jade thinks about telling the truth or not, but admits it's because he's good at challenges. They could really use his strength. Logan is happy with that answer and walks off. Jade in confessional says she may have left out 75% of the reasoning, but he doesn't need to know that. Benji visits the cabin where Tristan is. Benji says hi and asks if they needed anything. Tristan says they're fine, but just a bit gloomy today. They add an awkward chuckle. Benji sits down next to them. They sit in silence for a while, until Tristan giggles at Benji. Benji asks what they're laughing at, and Tristan shrugs, says they're just laughing at him. Benji asks why. Tristan says they're feeling better now. Benji is confused, until Crystal announces an idol has been hidden, and the two go off to find it together. Hannah is searching for the idol and bumps into Logan. Both of them tell the other to watch where they're going. They chuckle at one another. Hannah gives him a formal welcome to the team, which Logan takes. They search together a while as they bond. Back on the orange team, Anastasia is also desperately trying to find the hidden immunity idol. She gets annoyed as she can't find it and kicks a tree stump in rage. The stump rolls over, and revealing the hidden idol underneath it, Anastasia smirks as she picks it up. Crystal explains the game, which is a classic game of Queen Says. The dares go as followed. Isabel has to change her Instagram name from her regular name to @IsabelIsAFakeNun. This would make Isabel tremble slightly, but Jade says they'll think it's a joke. Isabel reluctantly changes her name. Crystal tells Hannah to give up her plants she brought. Hannah looks upset. She sighs and goes off to get them. She comes back and hands the 3 plants over. Crystal asks Jade and Benji to grab their own respective items, the turtle plushie and the Hydrowave comic book, and burn them. Benji looks sad to not have his, now exclusive to make it sting more,
comic anymore, and Tristan says they're sure there's another copy out there somewhere. He smiles softly and burns it. In confessional, Benji says, "It's exclusive! Of course there's not gonna be another one!" Jade sighs and throws her plush in the fire. Isabel asks if the turtle meant a lot to her, and Jade says it did, but that doesn't matter right now. Isabel gives her an understanding nod. Crystal dares Logan to go fetch Nina from the producer tent without Marcus seeing and wait until he gets her from him. Logan gulps as he goes off to do so. Crystal says Spencer has to list reasons why he and his ex didn't work until Logan returns. Spencer lists off one of the reasons, which makes sense, and then two reasons, which sound like the relationship coming to a halt was all Spencer's fault, earning him eyebrow raises. Logan returns with a furious Nina. Isabel says a prayer as Nina taunts Crystal. Some other dares happen, until Marcus comes on stage and threatens Logan with death as he takes back Nina. Crystal dares Anastasia to burn the hat Marissa gave her. Anastasia gasps. Anastasia is furious at the suggestion, saying she's not throwing her girlfriend's hat in the fire, and turns around, her arms folded. She refuses. Crystal looks surprised and calls her a wuss. Anastasia turns to Crystal, absolutely furious, and goes off on her, calling her out for making others miserable for television, and calling her a sad, pathetic woman, and that she's worse than her father. Crystal yells back at her and tells her to shut it. She says that the orange team loses, and walks off, hanging her head once she's out of sight. Everyone looks shocked. Ivy in confessional says she knew Anastasia could be ruthless, but that was fierce. Telling Crystal all that to her face was pure, raw emotion directors could dream of. Jade and Isabel talk. Isabel asks Jade about the turtle plush. Jade wants to ignore the question, but Isabel says she gave her the full story of becoming a nun. She'd love to know the story behind the turtles. Jade sighs and agrees, but asks if this can stay between them. Isabel does a prayer to prove it. Jade smiles and tells her about her family. Is that what the turtle stands for? I don't know. Pretend there's a backstory to it. That night, the voting ceremony arrives. The 4 campers are confident in their votes, but before Crystal can read her votes, Anastasia stands up. She shows her immunity totem. Crystal asks, "Already used?" Way to ruin later suspense, but accepts the totem anyways. Benji, Ivy, and Tristan look in horror as to whom is getting eliminated. In 3 cancelled votes to 1, the eliminated camper is Ivy. She sighs and says she knew it. Tristan yells, "No! No, it should have been me!" to Ivy as they hug each other. Ivy says it's okay. She's happy to have met them. Benji smiles, and Ivy waves him into the hug. Ivy tells them to stay strong and make it far, alright? Tristan tells her to say hi to Zayd with a wink. Ivy giggles as she walks off. And that is the end of the pre-merge. What did you think? I did realize the merge cast is again very similar to canon, but I promise it'll change more in the merge. I also wanted to quickly apologize for the wait on this video, as I had audio troubles in the beginning, and then I had a project due for school, which means this had to wait a little. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again in the merge. Goodbye!